Joining me now is NSC Coordinator for Strategic Communications, John Kirby. John, good to have you. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Katie.
So yesterday at the briefing when we were watching, you didn't have a good idea about what these objects were, whether they were commercial, benign, or maybe the work of a foreign government. Today, there's, am I getting the terms right, a leading explanation? Am I right about that?
Yeah, a possible leading explanation here that we're beginning to develop in concert with the intelligence community and with civilian aviation authorities is that these very well could be balloons of a completely benign nature, perhaps commercial or scientific research sort of a focus there. Again, we don't know for sure, Katie, because we haven't recovered that debris, and I want to caveat it. We would like to be able to see for ourselves to be sure, but based on flight characteristics, the visual confirmation by the pilots, and some other data that we're putting to it, one sort of, leading indication could be that they were actually benign balloons.
So we shut this down because we were worried about commercial airspace. They were at an altitude that they could interfere with commercial airliners. I'm right about that, right?
Yeah, and the other factor was the potential for surveillance. I mean, we weren't sure whether they had intelligence collection capabilities, and in light of this Chinese spy balloon, we acted out of an abundance of caution. So it was twofold. It was the risk to civil aviation, but also the potential risk to intelligence collection. I
wonder if you're getting on a commercial jet tonight and you're going at an altitude, 30, 40,000 feet. Can you feel confident that the airspace is clear, that there are not more of these objects out there? I mean, we've adjusted our radar sensitivity to see more of them.
Right.
I guess my question is, does it mean that there were a bunch of them out there before that were potentially threatening us that we didn't know about?
It's hard to know for sure. You know, it's hard to prove something that that you can't go back in time and take a look at. What we can assure the American people of is that if they get on a plane tonight, that NORAD and the U.S. military are taking our airspace management requirements very, very seriously, as well as the FAA, of course, and they can fly with that safe comfort that we're taking a hard look at the airspace above the country and making sure that we better understand it.
Are we currently monitoring anything else right now?
No, there's no active tracks or detection right now.
In terms of the Chinese spy balloon, some of it has been recovered. What can you tell us that we've learned so far?
We are getting debris now up off the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, some significant debris retrieval now because the weather improved a little bit over the weekend. And we're getting some of the electronics, we're getting some of the structure, and we're beginning to take a look at that and analyze that in concert with our partners at the FBI. So I think, over time here, particularly now that we're getting some of the electronics off of this thing, we'll have a much better sense of what it was capable of doing.
Anything we haven't seen before?
I don't want to get into that yet until we've had a chance to analyze it. We know that this is a spy balloon program that the Chinese have put in place that they have tried to advance in recent years. They've developed it, they've grown it, they've expanded it. And so we expect that we're going to learn even more about this particular platform than what we did by studying it for the 4 days or so that it was flying above the country. This getting hands on the material will certainly be very, very useful to us.
There are those out there who are wondering why the president hasn't addressed the American public. There are a lot of Republican lawmakers who are saying that he needs to say something. The Prime Minister of Canada said something to the Canadian people. Why is the president not coming out? Is one of the reasons the president has not come out is that the White House doesn't see this as a big enough crisis for the president to address the American public, that if he did come out, it would make it bigger than what it is?
We understand that there's uncertainty. There's some anxiety out there about these decisions to shoot these things down. That's why we have been, and the president has tasked the whole national security team to be as transparent and forthcoming with members of Congress and the public as we can be, and we have done that. We are still learning things right now, and just today, as a matter of fact, Katie, you and I started this interview talking about some additional indications now that we have of what these 3 objects might have been. We're still learning things, and I think the president wants to absorb that information as well, but he also wants to make sure we're sharing it as broadly as we can.
Is he frustrated that there's not a policy in place right now to make sure that there aren't these unidentified flying objects over our airspace, that he's not going to continue to have to be confronted with something like this?
So what he tasked Mr. Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, to do was put together an interagency effort to take a look at the decision-making protocols and the procedures in place for how we treat these kinds of objects now that we are looking more intently for them and at them. And we think very soon, coming days, we might be able to have more to share about what we're learning through this interagency effort and how we will try to treat these objects going forward. It's not frustration on the president's part. It's determination. He wants to make sure that we're putting the safety and security of the American people first and foremost always, and that we, now that we are seeing these things and looking for things and calibrating our radar sensitivities for them, that we are then analyzing and processing them in the most appropriate way going forward. That's what the team is focused on, and that's what he wants us to do.
So might we see a policy going forward, a policy that if things like this do enter our airspace, we will take them down? And I wonder if there is a policy in place. I mean, it's going to be complicated. These Sidewinder missiles are expensive, number one, $500,000 or so, and you tell me if I'm way off the mark on that. And it's also not guaranteed that they're going to hit the mark. I mean, this is not an object that these missiles were designed to hit, and we know this because it took two to get the one over Lake Huron.
I think that you are going to see us take a look at what the right parameters are for how to treat these going forward. How are we going to make the decision to engage or not to engage? What are the factors we're going to consider? And if we do engage, how we engage. We're willing to take a look and see if we need a different approach going forward. And that's what the president wants us to look at right now. But obviously, again, you got to make the safety and security of our national interests and the American people first and foremost. And if you look at the decision process that we made over the weekend, that the president made over the last those three objects, each and every one of those decisions was made with the firm recommendation by his senior military leaders and in keeping with the existing protocol and procedures for how to deal with the potential threat of objects over our skies or in our airspace. Each one of those decisions was made according to that set of protocol. What the president wants the team to look at is, do we have the protocol right? Do we need to maybe adjust now that we're seeing more of these things going forward? And again, I think we'll have more to say about that in coming days.
I was talking to Senator Coons a little bit earlier about how there's no crisis line with China. We know that Lloyd Austin, his counterpart, wasn't picking up when the U.S. tried, or when Lloyd Austin tried to call the defense secretary. Has that crisis line been established in the last 24 hours? And without it, are we in danger of a bad miscommunication with China?
Sadly, no, Katie. There's no military-to-military communications right now. You're right. Secretary Austin tried to reach his counterpart and was rebuffed. So we would like to get those military channels back open again. You might recall that the Chinese shut them down after then Speaker Pelosi visited Taiwan. One of the purposes of Secretary Blinken's trip, had he been able to execute that trip, would have been to talk to the Chinese about getting that avenue of communication open again. Because at a time like this, when tensions are high, you want to avoid misunderstanding and miscalculation, and that's one way to do that. I will add, however, that we haven't severed diplomatic relations with China. We still have an embassy there and a terrific Ambassador Burns. Secretary Blinken still has an open line of communication with his counterpart, the Foreign Minister Wang Yi. I mean, there are still avenues for us to communicate directly with the Chinese. In fact, we did that when we first detected that spy balloon over our skies. We demarched, we brought in the Chargé here in Washington representing their embassy, brought him into the State Department and registered our deep concern about that. So there are still avenues of communication.